part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey, real quick before we jump into our final 2021 NFL preseason episode with the incomparable Jason Lloyd of The Athletic, who was just simply incredible, I have to take a few moments to show my sincere gratitude to this incredible podcast, Jeremy, Holly, and every single fan of the show. This will be my last time co-hosting the show as an official host, and I have to say it's just been an absolute joy. Jeremy, thank you for trusting me with this idea. We had this thing soaring up the iTunes charts, and this was even before Apple Podcasts was a thing, if that tells you how long we've been doing this. And we did this and we had never even met. We were just two dudes who loved the Browns and wanted to talk about them. Thank you for this incredible ride. Thank you to Holly, who has been so gracious with the transition. This is it's not easy for me to do. It's a hard step to take, but one that is needed for the network to continue to grow. And Holly has been so understanding and kind. Thank you, Holly. To all of the Browns media brass, former players, commentators, and national personalities who have come on the show and had to endure convoluted questions, stuttering and stammering, and maybe even a little fanboying. Thank you for not turning your nose up, and thank you for giving us time and room to grow. And most importantly, thank you to so many of you who have never given up on us, and for so many of you who have joined us for our live shows, who have participated in our polls on Twitter and giveaways, who have followed us on Twitter and left mostly kind reviews on Apple, and who listen to all of our shows. Thank you so much. Listen, this podcast isn't going anywhere. It'll still produce the best Browns content in the podosphere, but it'll be different. That's okay. Different is good. Different is better. The show will be better. I promise. It's going to be great. I'll be able to focus more on the network, on Press Play, and my own podcast, which has been abandoned over the last 3 years as I've launched this network and put most of my time and energy into this exact show. I'll still be around the Orange is Oranger, but this is Holly and Jeremy's thing now, and I hope you all enjoy it. In this episode, Holly and I are joined by Editor-in-Chief of The Athletic, Jason Lloyd. We break down the Browns' Final 53, Stefanskis' magic with difficult players, offer our season predictions, and we get Jason to agree to do something absolutely insane if the Browns start 5-0, and I pray that it happens. This is a really fun one. Okay, one last time. Jim Donovan, take it away.
45-40, run, William, run! He's got blockers in front, 5, touchdown! Joshua Cribbs! Snap back, ball down, kick block! They block the kick!
What is up, everyone? This is the Orange is Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast. I'm your host, Holly Wetzel, at Holly and Liz on Twitter. Browns insider Jeremy Powell is not able to make it today, so I'm just hanging here with good old Chase Smith, the Press Play podcast fearless leader, who is leaving us. This is the end of an era of 100 and how many shows, Chase?
No one's counting, but 172. It's not goodbye. It's a see you later. And I'll see you around. But, Holly's, like we mentioned last week, just super confident that you and Jeremy are going to continue to kill it. And I'm just going to continue to try to keep up with the growth of Press Play and see where this thing goes. But super excited to have you on board, and for our special guest today. Oh my goodness, holy crap, first time ever.
I know, this is a big deal. I mean, we had to roll out the brown and orange carpet for this guy. We had to make sure we were recording at a certain time. He was so particular. If you know
Would
him,
you please?
Mr. Jason Lloyd is the editor-in-chief of The Athletic here in Cleveland, and self-proclaimed ankle taker of parking tickets, which, Jason, I helped you form that.
I was going to say, you realize you gave that to me.
I did.
You gave that to me.
I need to know.
We talked about this, but it was so long ago. I really, this isn't even worth the time, but let's boil it down to 30 seconds. I parked outside the queue because I had to run in to grab a credential or something. I had to run into the arena, grab something to come back out with my car. And there was a cop waiting outside the parking garage, and he wrote my car in the 3 minutes I was gone. And I'm like, yo, seriously? And I can't remember all the details now, but it was supposed to be an hour and a half. They start writing tickets an hour and a half before tip, I think is what it was. And it was like a 7:05 tip. So it must have been like 5:35 that they could start writing tickets. And it was like 5:32 when he wrote the ticket. And I like went all journalist on him. I'm like, this is not, you were early. And so he tore up the ticket. Like he got so aggravated with me that he's like, you know what, just fine. And he took it and he tore it up. And I'm like, all right, now we're good. We're cool now. So, and then, yeah, you gave me the nickname ankle taker of parking tickets after that. And I actually forgot that was still up there. So yeah, that's on my Twitter feed.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty impressive to get one of those guys to tear up a ticket. They don't ever budge. They're like, screw you, dude. No way. Not happening.
You don't like ask some of the teams in town when I go full reporter mode. Like it's not good.
Full reporter mode.
Full reporter mode.
Signal.
Let's see that, Jason. For this podcast. I want full reporter mode. Let's go, man.
No, there's nothing to be full reporter mode over currently.
Well, I don't know. The preseason might be your article, Jason, which we'll get to, of course. That you wrote recently. We will definitely dissect that. But I wanted to start first with your overall thoughts on the cuts to the 53 roster. Any surprises or anyone wish, you would have had made the cut? I mean, I just saw Kaduro Hodge got picked up by the Lions, so good for him. I'm not surprised by that, but I was a little bummed, but it just shows, the depths that we have in some of these positions. So overall thoughts, any surprises for you? Happy?
Yeah, I don't think any there's no one that I could look at and say I was really shocked. I think it kind of went the way that a number of us thought it was going to go. Kaduro Hodge, I wasn't really surprised by. He was more of a special teams guy than anything. I said this before. I think I wrote this a couple weeks ago. The depth across this offense, I think, I'm 45. I go back a long time. I can't remember a Browns team being deeper on the offensive side of the ball at every position. Mm-hmm. You never want injuries, obviously. But at literally every position they could withstand, even at quarterback. Like I'm comfortable with Chase Keenum. If Baker's out for a week or two, Chase Keenum can win games in the NFL. And the running back spot, I think, is the deepest they've ever been in franchise history. I can't ever think of a time when you had 4 quality running backs. And I'm going to call Demetric Felton a quality back, even though he's a rookie. But just the versatility, I think that they're going to have fun. I think Alex Van Pelt and Kevin Stefanski are going to have fun with the way that they sort of deploy Felton in this offense. And some of the things that they can do with him moving around the field. Defensively, I liked Porter Gustin. Maybe I'm in the minority there. I was glad to see that he slid through waivers and is on the practice squad, at least for now. I am a little bit concerned about their depth up front in the front 7, particularly, I don't think they're very good at linebacker. I hope I'm wrong. And I'm concerned about the depth across the front 4. But aside from that, no real surprises. Nothing that really jarred me or stood out to me. And I'm not sure that this is the final 53. We'll wait and see what they do at kicker. We'll see if Chase McLaughlin is really the opening day kicker, if they make a move there. But that's minor but major, right? Kicking wins a lot of games in the NFL. Here it comes down to kicking. So I don't want to say it's not a major issue, because it could be. But I preferred McLaughlin over Parkey. I wasn't sad when Parkey wasn't going to get the job, because even the kick that McLaughlin missed from 57, I'm like, well, shit, he hit the crossbar. Parkey couldn't get into the end zone. So at least he's got the leg to kick in Cleveland in the wintertime.
Yep. Yeah, Jason, I agree. I wasn't surprised by many cuts. Jeremy was a huge Kaduro Hodge fan, which great player, but just you start to look at what they did in the draft and how the players, progressed last season. Like you could only keep so many players. And the fact that we are having this discussion that a handful of the players they cut on offense and defense would be players or starters in previous Browns teams. It speaks to the job that Stefanski and Barry's done and DePodesta to bring all of this talent in. And I absolutely, Dearness Johnson, I think is underrated. He came in against Dallas last year and ran really, really well. And it was just, our depth was so evident against the Falcons that I was shocked. It was it was like, I can't believe the Browns are here, and it was great. Yeah. Jojo Natson, I thought, had a really strong preseason last year. He had a great return last year and then got injured. And it's just unfortunate that, that happens with players. I think a ton of great promise.
But when they drafted Dimitri Felton and they said, "Oh, we're going to be receiver and running back," you kind of saw the writing on the wall with JoJo Natson. And I agree. We are super deep, and it's just super excited for the season to start.
Yeah, Natson really, his only role was really going to be a return guy, and if they feel comfortable with Felton, that's what's nice. The luxury of Felton is he can fill so many roles. He could be a return guy, he could be a receiver, he could be a running back. So it's really 3 spots in one, and it allows you maybe to carry. Not that his roster spot was ever in trouble, but a guy like Grant Delpit, who you really have seen nothing from, and you really don't know what you're getting. Same with Anthony Schwartz. Obviously, they're not going to cut a 3rd round pick the first year, but I'm just saying You're carrying guys on the 53 right now that you don't really know what you're going to get from them. But the versatility that someone like Felton provides gives you a little bit of that luxury to carry guys, or even a guy like Michael Dunn, who might wind up on IR, but you got to carry him on your initial 53. It's a chess game, making all the pieces fit. And obviously, the Browns, we think to this point, have done a nice job with it.
Holly, what are your thoughts on the cuts?
Yeah, I mean, I was not surprised, like I said, by any of them, but I do think it's interesting. Jason, do you think with all the picks that since Barry has been here have survived, right? They've made it over. They've made it over the hump. Do you think that that's a testament to him and his leadership? Do you think, is there any real tie? I mean, I want to say obviously yes, right? I mean, he's done so much here and really changed the program around. So all of those guys have made it since he's been here.
Yeah, and a lot of that, I mean, you're always going to have more patience with your guys. So if you draft them, you're going to give them longer rope or more leash, just because it's your name on that ticket as well. But Donovan Peoples-Jones in the 6th round last year, Dimitri Felton in the 6th round this year. This team finally has people who can evaluate talent, and then people who can develop that talent. And John Dorsey, I thought, did a decent job, and I was not happy when he was fired. I thought that he did enough right, aside from the Freddie disaster. I thought he did enough right to keep the job. But now, in hindsight, you can see where, Dorsey and DePodesta probably were not on the same page very often. They didn't view this the same way, whereas Barry and DePodesta are very much aligned in their thinking and the way they go about things. And Paul, I've said this before, Paul was right on just about everything, and nobody bothered to listen to him the first however many years that he was here. And now they're finally listening to him. And now you're reaping the benefits, and you have someone like Andrew Berry, the youngest GM in the league, who clearly can identify talent, and not, by the way, not overthinking things. Like, suddenly the Browns are taking most of their top picks from Ohio State and Auburn and Alabama. Like, go figure. The top college programs in the country, they're not trying to outsmart themselves and find the undersized cornerback from Alcorn State who's going to surprise everyone. Like, right. It's just some of it's common sense, but if common sense was common, everyone would have it.
And before Holly, before you continue with the roster, I want to jump in here. It's important for the Browns fans to alter their expectations. We were so bad for so long. People expected every draft pick to always make the team. And that happened most of the time. But as this team continues to get better and goes further in the playoffs and we get better depth, like, that doesn't always have to be the case. And it's a weird transition. Like, as a fan, you're just like, well, hey, we drafted these guys, they're going to be on the team. Well, not necessarily. And it's just, it's here. We have to grow with the team. Fans have to grow with the team. And that doesn't always mean every draft pick always makes a team. But when you see a player like a 6th round Peoples-Jones and Dimitri Felton, like, it's pretty easy to see, oh, they need to be on the roster.
Yeah.
Speaking of more guys here that did make that 53, Malik McDowell made the cut. He's had a pretty rough background, and he was drafted 35th overall, I think, in 2017, never played in the NFL. I read a pretty good article. I think Tim Withers put it out, former Oranges Oranger Browns guest,
into the show.
Did a nice little write-up on him and just how far he's come. So, Jason, do you think that, he's going to be able to stay on the straight edge. It's always a risk with these guys with these past issues. But then I and you want to see most of them succeed, right? Obviously, or all of them. And unfortunately they don't all do, but someone like Hunt, for instance, Kareem Hunt, that's not even a thought in my head anymore when I think about him. He's really come so far. So do you think with under this regime that Malik McDowell will be able to thrive maybe more than he would in any other program?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the guy, and they have to want it for themselves. And I was there yesterday when Malik was talking at length about some of the things that went on in his past, and he was very open. And some guys get defensive about it and say that's in the past. I don't want to talk about that. I'm moving ahead. I'm looking forward. And Malik answered every question. It was very much like, yeah, I'm comfortable talking about it. This is my story. This is what happened. And there's the ATV accident. There's the head injury. There's fighting with police and the arrest, 11 months in prison. And there's a lot there. And a DUI was involved. Like there's a lot in his past, and there's a lot of baggage. But it's also a number of years ago. And you mentioned Kareem, and I did not like the Kareem signing when it happened, and I was pretty vocal about it.
No, I didn't either, actually.
Yeah, playing in the NFL is a privilege, and it just felt like Kareem didn't really like Kareem just was gonna. Kareem didn't have enough time to prove whether or not he had changed. I guess he wasn't out long enough to really show this was going to work. And really, he's had a couple brushes when he first got here as well. Nothing major, but a couple minor incidents that made you think, man, is this guy ever going to figure it out or not? And to his credit, I think Kareem did figure it out. And I go back to the 911 call. I'm sorry, not the 911 call. When he was in the back of the officer's car when he was stopped on a routine traffic stop in Westlake, and the audio was released, and he's like, man, this is when the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl. He's like, you don't understand. I'm supposed to be in Kansas City right now, or I'm supposed to be playing for a Super Bowl, and I'm not. And I think it was just a real wake-up call of where he was and where he was supposed to be. And I think that really kind of helped get Kareem on the right track. And you can hope that the same thing is true of Malik McDowell. He saw everything that was taken away from him. And he's had, I think, 4 years now to think about all that he lost and all that he could have had. And here's a guy that really didn't make his money yet. Let's be honest, that's a driving factor in these guys to at least get one good contract, and which Kareem did. Kareem did get his contract here eventually. And with McDowell, you just hope, listen, he can play. There's no question he can play. He had a great preseason. He's moving bodies around. He's doing what the Browns want from him. And Stefanskis said yesterday, he's got to keep doing what he's doing. And that's the kind of guy you certainly can root for turning his life around. And you just hope that he sticks with it. I don't know him nearly well enough to declare, this is going to work or no, it's not. But, to our knowledge, there's been nothing with him, no off-field stuff with him since he came here. And you just hope that continues to be the case.
Yeah, just a truly incredible story there for Malik McDowell. And I think you have to trust, Stefanski and Barry's system they have in place, and kind of see the other players that are on the team that it does seem to be this culture of team over self. And I think that starts with the leaders. I know Miles and Baker both have had their own kind of journeys to self-responsibility and leadership. But to see the team kind of grow together and they've said a lot of times it was like Nick Chubb is like the soul of this team, right? Who just, puts his head down, does his work, doesn't really say much. And it seems that as this team has grown together, they all have kind of adopted this like personal responsibility. And you just, hope that, hey, like these systems that are in place to help these young men that we're watching grow in front of our eyes. These are really young. It's easy to forget that these guys are like, some of them are 22, 23, 25 years old in front of the whole world with all of, fandom eyes watching every move they make, to see them grow up in front of us. And it's been really fun to see them kind of step into their own. And you just, I think it's going to be a great season. I don't expect much. I think the whole team, even from Stefanski down has kind of adopted, hey, we're going to have a quiet off season. We're going to let everyone else do the talking and make the noise. And there's not really been a lot from the players this off season. I think it's been very intentional. So I think it's an incredible story.
Well, as we're talking about this, guys, I'll add one other name, David Njoku, and the fact that he's not only still here, but bought in with everything that he's been through. And, I talked to Brad Childress last year about that. And, the day Kevin was hired, the day Stefanski was hired, I wrote a column like, okay, the Browns were the only team that interviewed him. So what do the Browns see? And given their track record of coaches, you had no reason to believe in them. And so I wrote, like, what did the Browns see in him that everybody else in the league missed? And now we know the answer. Like it obviously was the right pick. So I called Childress after it was pretty evident that this was going to work with Kevin. And I asked Brad the same thing. I'm like, okay, what did we miss? What did everybody miss? What did Paul DeBodesta see that nobody else saw in the NFL? And he and Childress mentioned Njoku and the way that Kevin handled that situation. And Brad said, I don't have the calm temperament that Kevin does, and I probably would have handled it much differently and told him, if you want to be here, then get out. And he said Kevin never did that with him, and Kevin got David to buy back in, and he got him back in the boat and got him to pick up the oars again and to row in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to Kevin about that a couple weeks ago and said, like, how do you do that? How do you get these guys to buy back in when they're worried about their next contract, when they're worried about their touches, when they're worried about their catches? And he said, you just have to be transparent with them. You just have to be honest and transparent with them and show them who you are. And he's done an excellent job of that, I think, of just being transparent with these guys, being honest with these guys. And now Njoku we'll wait and see, because you can say whatever you want, but actions will show it. But David's like, I'm all bought in on the dirty stuff now, on the blocking, on the things that are asked of me that he never wanted to do his first couple of years here.
Yeah. So what you're saying, Jason, is the Browns have their own Ted Lasso. Can I put those words in your mouth?
I haven't seen any of season 2 yet. I need to watch that.
He's like the quiet Ted Lasso, though. It's strange. Like he's like this. He really is, though, I guess. I mean, if he makes biscuits, I'm gonna die, because then that man can do no wrong ever in my eyes. I'm already on. I've been on that Stefanski train. Mm-hmm. I'd love to be on that Stefanski train, but I am on that train for the most part. But if you made biscuits, no, that'd be game over for me. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to take a short break, guys, and we'll be back with more with Jason Lloyd from The Athletic.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it. Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Regai and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
For the Dennis Maniloff Show, I'll tap into my 40-plus years of following Cleveland sports and 30-plus years of writing and talking about them, so as to bring you informed opinions and analysis of your favorite players and teams. I also will monitor the national sports scene and, when warranted, step out of the toy department and into the real world. And I'll always be on the lookout for special guests. By all means, join us.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey, I'm Jason.
And I'm Gary, and we love ball cards.
And if you love ball cards too, good news. You just found your new favorite podcast. From breaks to grading.
And from collecting to flipping, join us on the Ball Card Show.
The sports podcast for the sports collector.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
This is Mike Voorhees, co-host of the Swing and a Tribe MLB podcast. If you love Cleveland Indians baseball, then this is the pod for you. We've got you covered each week as we talk about all the games, breaking news, trades, the roster, all things Tribe. You're going to love it. Go Tribe.
Hey, it's Tito, host of the Premier Fantasy Podcast. Get all the news and analysis you need to dominate your fantasy league. I've been doing this as long as anybody in the business. I can help give you the edge in your leagues. It's the Premier Fantasy Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
All right, everyone, we are back on the Orange is Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast here with Jason Lloyd, editor-in-chief of The Athletic. All right, Jason, we want to now get into, obviously, the biggest question is, what is your prediction for the year for the Browns? First of all, let me ask game one, right? And then I want to know your whole full season prediction, where we land.
I think way too much is going to be made from week one way or the other. I mean, if you look back at last year, they got their doors absolutely blown off by Baltimore in week one, and it had zero bearing on how the season went. And, you know, if the Browns go to Kansas City and beat the Chiefs, Cleveland may fall into the lake. And so, you know, there's obviously going to be massive overreaction to that, and people will be buying Super Bowl tickets. The flip side is, if they lose, you know, if they get their doors blown off again, there's going to be obviously a lot of hostile people who I don't think it's going to be quite as bad of an overreaction of the season's over. I hope not. I don't think they're going to win week one. I just don't think they're going to win. I think it's a really tall test. You know, you're putting Greg Newsome in a really tough spot going to Kansas City against Patrick Mahomes and that offense that, you know, my partner at The Athletic, Zach Jackson, has said for weeks, if Greg Newsome is your starting cornerback in Kansas City, they're going to go right at him. And I think that's probably fairly accurate. And so I just, for a variety of reasons, I don't think they're going to win that game, but I don't think that's going to have much of a bearing on how the season's going to go. I've thought all along they're probably in that 11-6 range, 10-7, 11-6. And I know that doesn't sound, people want to say 13-5 and 12-4 or 12-5 or 13-4 or 14-3, but you know, they do have some challenges ahead of them. I think they're probably splitting Baltimore. They're probably splitting Pittsburgh. I know some people are real down on Pittsburgh, but to me, this is still a team that won the division last year. Chase, you're one of them that's down on Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I'm down on all the teams in the AFC North except for the Browns, and I'm trying to be objective, but Baltimore, I think I don't know if they're going to win 8 games. It's just, I mean, they lost.
They're going 0-17.
No, I know. I said 8 games. No. I mean, they lost Dobbins.
Oh, 8. Oh, geez.
They lost Dobbins. I don't know. You can only do so much with Lamar Jackson, and
Baltimore and Pittsburgh are two of those teams that just constantly rebrand themselves and constantly find a way. Mm-hmm. And until at least in my eyes, until they don't, I just assume that they do. I just assume that they will.
Yeah.
And until we have evidence that because we wanted to count them out before.
And they've earned that respect. Those coaches have earned that respect. The organizations have earned that respect.
Yeah.
And until otherwise, it's hard to say they're not going to have a good season, but
it's hard to sweep. It's hard to sweep a division opponent because they know you so well. They know your tendencies. They know what you're going to do. You get them obviously twice a year. I think if they, to me, a successful season, obviously you win the division and you host a playoff game. And that would be the ultimate, I think, in Cleveland, obviously, to be able to host a playoff game for the first time in 35 years would be phenomenal. But, you know, I think realistically, if they are 11-6 this year, that's a good year to me. That would be a very good year.
Chase, what do you think? What's your prediction?
We did a joint podcast with That's What B Said in the middle of the summer, and I have been going 14-3, and that's really high and really lofty.
That is high.
But
I didn't know if it changed.
Oh, no. I look at their schedule. I look at the Bengals, the draft the Steelers had, and it's just hard to not allow my fandom to get in the way. I just believe in what we started last year. I think Baker really found something special. I think he has his perfect mix of swagger and confidence and trust in our offense and his offensive line and the system with the best players to make that happen. And I love what they did on defense this offseason. They went in hard on defense on the secondary. I think Jadeveon Clowney, if he stays healthy, we saw what happened. You get pressure on the quarterback in the Super Bowl. That's not a secret. And I think they saw that, and like, we can do that. We have the best edge rusher in the NFL, and why not pair him with another top rusher in the NFL and see what happens. And when you improve your pass rush, it improves your defensive backs, and it's going to make everyone else look better. And 14-3 might be too much. I don't think winning the division is out of the question. And I hope I just did a 3-team division parlay last night with the Browns, Titans, and Washington football team. So I hope the Browns win the division among other teams. I'm feeling really, really good. 14-3 is my probably overreaching record, but I'm excited.
I'm gonna go 12-5. I think that's where I feel like I'm landing. I was maybe more on a 11-6 earlier in the summer. I'm gonna land at a 12-5. Chase, I agree. We really beefed up the defense. Joe Woods really has no excuse now at this point. Our O-line is just fantastic. Baker, I saw him I was able to see him in camp in person, and he looks fantastic. I mean, we talked about this last episode. He looks jacked. He looks good. And then, we saw him for a few series on Sunday night, and super impressed. I know it was only a few, but it was like riding a bike for him, going back out there, doing what he needed to do and coming back out. So I'm going to go with 12-5. I'll be a nice happy medium between the two of you.
Yeah. And I think the floor for this season, like, they have to make the playoffs. Like, if they don't, then you can say this wasn't a successful season. I think that's where we're at now. And that in itself is just like a realistic expectation is mind boggling. I don't think if we're 11-6 and make the playoffs, I'm not going to be upset. I mean, that's 11-6, which is still remarkable. But if you've been watching ESPN or listening or reading, like, Browns as Super Bowl like picks, that's not uncommon. That's a very like trendy, sexy, like, oh, the Browns. We are one of the darling teams this offseason. And to think what that record could be, I don't think 14-3 is completely out of the realm of possibility. I think it's a little high, but I don't think it's impossible.
Chase is starting to ramble at this point. He's like, 14-3. That sounds great. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, for 14-3, they got to stay healthy. Number one, right?
Yep.
You cannot have significant injuries, and you need Jadeveon Clowney to be the Jadeveon Clowney that everyone thinks you're getting, and that's not the Jadeveon Clowney I think you're getting. Like, I've been down on the Clowney signing all along, and I hope I'm wrong. But when I see a guy who's been on 4 teams in 4 years, and I see a guy that Mike Vrabel has said twice now, nah, we're good, I don't want him back. And every city talked about Clowney the way that Cleveland is talking about him when he got there, and then he was gone after a year. And that's really concerning to me. And the fact that they lost Sheldon Richardson as a result. When they first signed Clowney, it's like, okay, fine. It's a low risk gamble. I'm not necessarily as high on it as everyone else, but so what? Throw the dart, take the chance and see. And then a couple of days later, Richardson's gone. It's like, okay, wait a minute. This changes things, because now there's a lot more expectation on Clowney. Now you need him to stay healthy and deliver. And those are two things he hasn't really done the last few years. So I'm way more skeptical on Clowney than I think a lot of other people are.
That's fair. And I think that's super valid. He's never played beside Myles Garrett, which you see all these other things that can talk you into him being that top tier talent very, very easily. And if there's a fan base that can talk themselves into anything, it's the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, it's Cleveland, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe they keep him in bubble wrap for half the year, and they keep him on a snap count. Because, you don't need Jadeveon Clowney week 1, even in Kansas City. You don't need him in week 7. You need Clowney 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and into January.
So, okay, can we talk about your article that you wrote about preseason? Because
Sure.
that speaks right along with that. Jason, what if teams adopt, because it is a longer season, 17, and I've even heard rumors that they're looking at 18, that what if you start to see this preseason like mindset of we're going to limit and kind of like what they do in the NBA with, load management. What if we start to see that in the regular season? Can you imagine the ramifications of fantasy and all these things? Ooh, you got me thinking now, man.
Well, the reason I don't think we're going to get to that point is because there's still only 17 games, and it's not like the NBA. There's 82 games, and teams that are 500 or even below 500 make the playoffs. That's generally not the case in the NFL. Every once in a while, an 8-8 can fall into the playoffs, but for the most part, like there's 9 and 7 teams that are left out. And so, like, because of that, I don't think that we will see what you're talking about. But I don't know. I mean, I hadn't really considered it. I hadn't really thought about it. I just think it's still, even at 17 games, even if they add an 18th game, it's still it's still a sprint. When you're talking 82 games and you're talking 162 games, obviously there's a lot more room for error than there are when you're talking about 16, 17, or 18 games.
But I think you're exactly right. If Clowney goes out there in week 1 and 2 and just impresses, and he's the Clowney that everyone thought he would be, why not say, whoa, buddy, let's kind of keep you in shape, but let's see this in November, December. Why wouldn't you say, hey, here's a couple games, we want you to just chill out? Why not? If it is a marathon, why would you have him get injured week 4 against the Bengals or whatever week we play them when you need him week 16, the first couple rounds of the playoffs to be there if he is injury prone? I don't know. I agree. I think that is a valid play. And if you're confident you're going to make the playoffs and you're going to make a deep run, look at the big picture. You don't need them for these games.
Yeah. And I would say the same about Odell on the other side of the ball. That's another guy who you don't necessarily need week 1. From all, it certainly looks, I was out at practice yesterday and I mean, he looks great.
This is fascinating.
But again, Odell's another one to me. I mean, I put Odell in the Clowney boat of a lot bigger name than production that we've seen to this point. He makes these dazzling, phenomenal one-handed catches during practice, and then he drops balls that hit him in both hands during the game. And I'm like, really? Like, what's going on here? And so, I think this is probably Odell's last year in Cleveland. I think he's got an excellent chance to win a Super Bowl, and I think that's probably pretty important to him. And we'll see what kind of player the Browns get with him this year. But he's another one I would put in that category of bring him along slowly. Obviously, coming off a major injury, you don't need him out there on every snap weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You need him out, but you do need to win those games, and so there is a balance there. But yeah, I could see them going slow on both sides of the ball with some of these guys.
Yeah, I agree, Coach Lloyd. Let's do it. Let's rest these players.
I see. I'm so outnumbered now. This is not fair.
Well, you want to throw him out there week 1 for 60 snaps?
Look,
Holly wanted to play them all. Her and Jeremy are like, let's play them 3 quarters against the Falcons in Atlanta.
No. Absolutely not. Thank you very much. I wanted to see Baker out there for a couple series. I wanted you, like Jeremy and I have said. Now he wanted them out way longer than I did.
That's true.
But
Yeah,
I wanted them out. Just to get the timing down and all of that. I mean, I think that's important. I know the preseason plays, in just certain factors. I think it is obviously great. I feel like this preseason that the Browns had is more of what a preseason should be, or it should be really for all teams, because we know what we have, and that's fine. You don't have to play all those guys all the time, but I think the way that they did it was probably the best way. They put the guys out later on in the last game, the starters. We were able to see the guys below trying to fight for their spot, and I think that's really important too. I know, Jason, in your article, you talked a lot about the joint practices, and Stefanskis really likes the joint practices, and I was able to watch one, which was great. But I feel like, Dobbins going out, like that's going to happen regardless if it's and I believe at least in a preseason game versus a regular game. And I know they maybe aren't going as harder, or really preseason versus a joint practice, because they're kind of the same feel. So I don't see the big deal with that. I don't think the preseason is going to go away, right? I mean, it's too much of a moneymaker for the NFL. I talked about how I went down there for the preseason game and it was $50 to park, for God's sakes. Like, it's insane for a preseason game, and tickets and so forth. So money wise, we know it's probably not going to really go anywhere unless they're going to start charging more for these joint camps. That's kind of the way it went. But that's my thought. I mean, isn't it right, Jason? You got to have these guys that are trying to make the team have some type of place to go. And then on top of that, have the starters get a chance to get in there to get back a feel. And someone, like I said, like Baker, was like getting back on a bike. It's like he threw a couple. All right, I'm good. Done. Out. Ready for the season.
Well, the counter argument to that would be that there was no preseason last year and everything was fine. Like,
but for anybody,
the regular season didn't suffer for it.
But I think that was for anybody, though, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. But to me, like, I think if you injected these coaches with truth serum, because that's the only way you'll ever get a straight answer at any of them, that the joint practices and the training camp practices are far more valuable to them than anything they see in a preseason game. I don't think anything that happens, very, very little that happens in a preseason game has any relevance to what happens with the final 53 and with roster decisions. Someone emailed me after that article and it's like, well, how can you say that when Mac Jones wouldn't be the quarterback if he didn't get the opportunity because Cam Newton was out? And the argument was playing in the preseason. I'm like, Bill Belichick knew from watching practice every day who his quarterback was going to be. The preseason is valuable for fans to be able to see things that they don't otherwise get to see, because that's the only time, unless you go out to training camp, and that's only a very limited number of people, obviously, who can fit there and watch training camp. And you're not going every single day because most people have lives and jobs, but you might be able to go once. But preseason is really the fans' opportunity to see what's going on. But coaches don't view it the same way. Coaches view it, at least I believe, coaches view it more as unnecessary risk, because in practice you can control the environment. Mm-hmm. You're not taking guys to the ground. You can, and Kevin's talked about this before, you can set up 2-minute drills with joint practices when the Giants are in town. You can run a 2-minute drill that you may not get to do in a preseason game. Preseason is just, I look at football as 17 car crashes a year, because that's what these guys are in. They're playing, it's now up to 17 car crashes a year. And in practice, you can limit some of that contact. You're still going to have injuries. Like, of course, you're still going to have injuries. But when you are doing everything you can, first of all, if the injury occurs in a regular season game, then that's life. You're trying to win the game. If it occurs in a meaningless game when nothing is at stake and nothing matters, I don't know that you're really getting better in a preseason game. In practice, if there's an injury occurs in practice, at least you're trying to get better. And at least it's, like I said, it's a controlled environment and things happen sometimes. And that's, you just have to live with that. But a preseason game is so uncontrolled, and it's an unnecessary car crash on top of the 17 that are necessary.
Yeah. And I think you can look at kickoffs, right? That they have tried to limit this unnecessary car crash, and they move that up, and you don't see nearly as many injuries happen. And it's all analytics, right? It's full circle, the Podesta and the Browns pass.
Yeah.
It's all about playing the numbers, and you would rather control what you can. I think here's where we're going to end up. I think we're going to end up with 2 preseason games. Everyone will get 1 away, 1 home, with a joint practice, and there'll be 18 regular season games. I don't know when. I don't see 17 being the final season number.
It's untenable because it's lopsided right now. Like, it's going to flip flop. AFC gets 9 home and NFC 9 to 5, but no one's going to like that. Yeah. You're going to want balance. You're going to want 9 and 9. I agree with you. I think 18's coming sooner than later.
I think we'll see 2 preseason games and we'll see 18 season. I think joint practices are going to be more common. They're already way more common, even 5 years ago. Hey, Holiday, can we have a sidebar from Jason? Do you think Jason uses TikTok? Is this kind of where we're at with your article?
Well, he definitely mentioned it in his article. So I feel like he's got kids. He's trying to be on the ups and ups with the youngins. So.
All right. So it's really funny that you said that. I do have a TikTok. I do. I use it to spot. I use it to spy on my 19-year-old son. That's why I use it.
Does he know?
He doesn't know Oh, he knows I'm on it, but I didn't tell my account.
Oh, God.
And I don't follow him, so I can just drop in at any time because I don't want him to know it's me.
Ooh.
But so what's fun? So then, like, you randomly like come across other things on TikTok, right? So now I'm like hip and cool, and that. So the other night I started trying to do that TikTok dance, and he was mortified.
Just amazing.
It was
Wait, which one?
The Applebee's bougie bourbon steak one.
Oh my
I love
God.
that. I love that. And so like, so then we pulled up YouTube, and I'm like trying to learn the steps better. And my younger kids loved it. They thought it was hysterical, but my 19-year-old was trying to crawl underneath the dining room table.
Hey,
He was
Jason,
horrified.
if the Browns beat the Chiefs week 1, will you release that for us?
I like this
I
idea.
don't know, man. I don't know. It was some rough footage, man. It was some raw footage.
What if they start 5-0? Let's do 5-0. You'll drop that.
Oh, hey, that's a good, yeah.
Well, number one, I got to see who their opponents are the first.
Here, I have it right here. I'll tell you. I'm all ready to go.
All right, what is it?
Week 1 away at Chiefs. Week 2 home for the Texans. Week 3 home for the Bears. Week 4 away at the Vikings, and week 5 home against the Chargers.
Oh boy.
Wait, 5 is in San Diego. Sorry. 2 home games, 3 away. 5-0. This is big. This is big. This is huge.
If they go 5-0, I will do. I'm not really raw footage because that's awful, but I will do the TikTok dance. I will do the dance.
There it is.
5-0. I will do the bougie styrofoam.
Oh my gosh. Give the people what they want, Jason, and 5-0.
Well, we'll see. We're holding you to this now, Lloyd. You cannot escape this.
Yeah. So all right. Well, I got 5 weeks now, 6 weeks to learn this dance, and my children will be horrified. And I cannot dance at all. Like I look like a drunk on 2 broken ankles.
I can't wait. Browns.
It's gonna be great.
You have 5-0. This is very important. We need to get this to.
Hey, what if we do this? What if Jeremy in Akron joins you?
Oh God, is that better or worse?
Not in person. He'll just do it too. I'll just say he'll do it. And if the Browns are 5-0,
we're gonna make him do it.
You won't be alone, Jason. There'll be another. There'll be someone else not in your video, but there'll be
bougie bourbon steak squeaking in the back.
And Jeremy is going to be able to figure that out because he has a daughter and I'm sure he would be. Yeah, I'm going to say Jeremy's going to do it. And so if they're 5-0, there'll be at least someone else doing it with you.
It's a catchy tune. Like it's a good. I'm not even a big country music fan, but it's a good tune.
All right, whatever you got to justify it in your head over there. You just keep on keeping on.
Let's go Vikings. Let's go Vikings.
Yeah.
That's actually, of my 3 losses, one of the ones I have us losing.
The Vikings.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good about 3. That's a West Coast trip. That's a long travel. I feel good. I'm going to lose one of those 3 roads. Now you have to be rooting against the Browns. I need 1 loss in the first 5.
Oh, that's good stuff. That's awesome.
All right, guys. All right. Well, that's it for us on the Orange is Oranger Cleveland Browns podcast today. Jason Lloyd, editor-in-chief of The Athletic. Thanks so much for joining us. It sure was fun. We learned a lot.
It was great. You guys roped me into some stupid TikTok dance. This was awesome.
I'm sure you're very happy for joining us. This is what we do to our guests.
Last time, Wetzel. This is it.
Yeah. It's only the beginning. Chase, I guess we say goodbye. This is I'm sad, but promise to right the ship forward here, and I'm glad that Jason was able to be a part of your last show with us for now. But you're going to be a cool special guest, I'm sure, in the future.
I'd be honored anytime, Holly. Just let me know.
All right. The Orange is Oranger is part of the Press Play Podcast Network. Follow us on Twitter at Orange is Oranger, at Press Play Pods. And to find out more about our network, check out PressPlayPodcast.com and see how you yourself can host a show on Press Play Pods. See you guys.
See ya.
For the